Every empire believes it is different, more advanced, more permanent. Yet when we examine the ruins of history's greatest powers, a quiet pattern begins to emerge, one that repeats with unsettling precision. At the height of their strength, these civilizations appear invincible, commanding wealth, influence, and global dominance. But beneath the surface, subtle economic shifts begin to reshape their foundations. Growth turns fragile, confidence masks imbalance. What looks like stability is often the beginning of structural decay. The story of fallen empires is not random collapse. It is the predictable unfolding of an economic cycle few recognize until it is too late. Every great empire begins with momentum. Economic energy surges as trade expands, innovation accelerates, and opportunity attracts ambition from every corner of society. Resources flow easily, markets grow rapidly, and confidence becomes the defining national emotion. Leaders invest boldly, citizens believe in endless progress, and prosperity feels self-sustaining. Success reinforces itself. Rising wealth strengthens institutions and encourages even greater expansion. During this phase, risks appear distant because growth seems to solve every problem. The system rewards optimism, and few question whether prosperity has limits. What begins as genuine strength gradually evolves into collective certainty that expansion will continue indefinitely. Prosperity creates confidence, and confidence makes borrowing feel safe. As expansion continues, governments and institutions begin to rely on credit to accelerate growth, fund ambitions, and maintain momentum. At first, debt appears manageable, even strategic, because rising revenues seem certain to outpace obligations. Encouraged by past success, spending expands faster than sustainable income. Financial systems grow more complex, masking vulnerability beneath layers of optimism. What once required careful calculation becomes routine. The belief that growth will always cover liabilities turns debt from a tool into a dependency. Gradually, leverage replaces productivity as the engine of expansion, quietly weakening the foundation beneath visible strength. As expansion matures, prosperity no longer spreads evenly. Wealth begins to accumulate faster at the top, where access to capital, influence, and opportunity multiplies returns. Economic growth continues, but its benefits narrow, concentrating within powerful institutions and elite networks. For many citizens, progress feels slower despite rising national wealth. Asset ownership becomes more important than productivity, widening the gap between those who control resources and those who depend on wages. Social mobility gradually weakens, yet outward stability remains intact. Beneath the surface, imbalance grows quietly, transforming economic success into structural division that reshapes both society and long-term resilience. When obligations outpace real growth, leaders face a quiet dilemma: cut spending and risk instability, or preserve the illusion of prosperity. Many choose the latter. Currency becomes the subtle instrument of survival, adjusted to stretch resources without immediate sacrifice. Through debasement or monetary expansion, more money enters circulation, easing short-term pressure and sustaining commitments that revenues alone can no longer support. At first, the effect feels stabilizing. Markets continue, wages are paid, and confidence appears intact. But the value beneath the currency begins to thin. Over time, trust erodes quietly, and the very tool meant to protect stability becomes a catalyst for deeper imbalance. Strength once built on internal productivity slowly shifts outward. As domestic efficiency weakens, the system begins leaning on external trade, foreign resources, and borrowed capital to maintain its standard of living. Imports replace self-sufficiency, and deficits are sustained by the willingness of others to finance them. For a time, this arrangement appears mutually beneficial, even sophisticated. Global integration masks vulnerability, but reliance creates exposure. When prosperity depends increasingly on outside trust and supply, control diminishes. The empire's stability is no longer fully its own. What once was strategic partnership gradually becomes structural dependence, quietly transferring leverage beyond its borders. Momentum begins to slow not with a sudden shock, but with subtle exhaustion. Institutions that once drove innovation grow cautious, protecting existing advantages rather than pursuing transformation. Productivity gains weaken as resources flow toward maintaining complex systems instead of creating new ones. Bureaucracy expands, risk-taking declines, and economic dynamism fades beneath layers of stability management. Growth continues, but it becomes increasingly artificial, supported by policy rather than genuine advancement. The society appears functional, yet energy shifts from building the future to preserving the present. Over time, stagnation replaces progress, leaving the system less adaptable precisely when resilience is needed most. Pressure rarely erupts instantly, it accumulates. As wages stagnate and living costs rise, the middle and lower classes begin to feel the weight of an economy that no longer works in their favor. Opportunities narrow, security weakens, and frustration grows quietly within households that once believed in upward mobility. Public trust starts to fracture as the gap between promise and reality widens. Protests, political polarization, and social tension emerge not from sudden chaos, but from sustained economic strain. When enough citizens feel excluded from prosperity, stability becomes fragile, and unrest transforms from isolated discontent into a systemic challenge. Trust is the invisible foundation of every dominant economy. As internal weaknesses become visible, foreign investors, trading partners, and financial institutions begin reassessing risk. Confidence that once flowed effortlessly starts to hesitate. Small withdrawals of capital appear first, often dismissed as temporary adjustments, but uncertainty spreads quickly in interconnected systems. Credit tightens, markets grow volatile, and borrowing becomes more expensive. The perception of stability, once unquestioned, begins to fade. When global trust weakens, money seeks safer ground, accelerating instability from the outside. What was once a position of financial leadership gradually transforms into vulnerability driven by shifting confidence. Collapse rarely announces itself with a single dramatic moment. It unfolds when pressures converge beyond control. Financial instability compounds internal division, and institutions once considered unshakable begin to fail under accumulated strain. Markets seize, authority weakens, and confidence evaporates. The structure that supported prosperity can no longer absorb shocks. In this climax, the old system fractures, not always through invasion or catastrophe, but through internal exhaustion. Power redistributes, often gradually, toward emerging centers capable of restoring stability. What follows is not merely an end, but a transition, one order fading as another begins to rise from its remains.